I say from the time I was a little kid, your parents, maybe your parents like mine, they invite the kids up when they have company. Do something entertaining.
Do something.
do something. And then they're like, what a stupid thing that we do as human beings. We do that from the time we're little kids onto whatever stage. Just come up and do something interesting.
It's like we all want to be entertained.
Yeah.
Regardless, like we all just kind of want to be entertained.
I put words, close together that sound the same, and people are like,
that sounded like a rap, by the way. I don't know that sounded like
it's happening right now in front of us.
Yeah. In the interest of Decode, living the dream, was there a point in your career you got to where you said, all right, I feel like I've made it now? Sarah, I feel like you're on a rocket ship. You just kind of climbed in and you're just taking off. So maybe you're not really there yet, but was there a moment where you're like, oh, like, I'm actually doing this?
I'm a big, when I started, I was a big advocate on saying out loud what you want. And it was that first year that I started doing this, I just said out loud, it was New Year's Eve, I was like, I want to work with the Raptors and I want to work with Drake. I'm like, Drake's the biggest artist here. I ended up working with Drake on January at his house with office hours, this community run I was doing. And then I ended up working with the Raptors in March. So it was just okay, I said those things out loud, that stood out. And I'm like, those things happen. I didn't even think it could even be possible. Those are two major things. And then once those things happen though, it's okay, what now? That wasn't just a dream. It's I want to do more, and it made me hungry for more. And that's where I'm at. It's where it's I just want more and more. And I don't know where this is gonna where I'm gonna end, and I don't know what the full dream is. But I am enjoying it. I'm enjoying all of it.
Brendan, you are artistic director for one of the largest theaters in the country. Do you still feel like you haven't made it? Is there a point where you felt like you made it? Maybe when you signed that contract, where are you at in your journey?
Objectively, I feel like I've quote unquote made it. I also know how precarious the job is. I ran before my job now. I ran another theater company, and I left that place and I was cleaning pools. So I know it's super precarious. Being a creative in Canada is it's a very complex ecology, and I'm really aware of that. But the question, what I'm interested in as well is what is the dream? Is the dream a job? Is the dream, what is the dream? And that is something that I'm constantly in conversation with. I mean, I'm gonna be turning 50 soon, and I'm still trying to figure out who is the man that I want to be, and rather who's the man I'm meant to be. And it's something that I'm still discovering at my age. That vision of who I am is a constantly changing and evolving thing.
I feel like it's instinctual in us to constantly think of new ways to explore ideas, explore ourselves. I don't think it'll stop. I know that for me, I have an incredible writing career, and there are moments where it's doing really well, and there are times where now I still serve, and there's something about that doesn't take away the fact that I am a writer, and it's something that I want to commit to getting good at for the rest of my life. The difference between a job and a craft, I guess, if it means getting better year after year, I'll keep figuring it out, but I've kind of gone against the idea that there's just going to be one day where I'm and I've got it and I figured it out, because I don't think she's coming. I don't think it's happening.
Or maybe it will come, and then you'll write a musical of it.
Yeah, exactly. And then stress about writing a musical, obviously. Exactly.
When I knew that we were going to be talking about it, I thought a lot about it, and then still kind of felt deeply uncomfortable about it for some reason, because I think I'm often wondering what it is. Is it balance? Is it rest? Is it being able to do what I love to do, show up for myself and be a person in the world that gives back and advocates and stuff like that. So I think it's a complex question, and I think that I'm constantly similarly learning and growing and giving myself the ability to change that. And I think maybe that is saying I've made it, to to allow myself and give myself permission to say, you can do this now, or you can explore this now, and maybe it's this. And
What a privilege to be able to do that.
But
And
exactly.
that is so true.
that is a privilege, and I don't take that for granted.
Yeah, there's definitely milestones and things for me that feel like, okay, I've literally made it. There's a thing I wanted to make and I made it. And those have always felt really significant. And then freedom, as you brought up, is another big thing, I think, as far as arriving somewhere in your career. But to me, it is a journey, and it's a journey of growing as an artist and growing as a person. And that will never stop. You've never arrived. There's always ways to get better at your craft or learn new elements of the craft. And then I just love so much that in what we do, we grow as people.
Hearing you guys talk, it kind of brought it up to like when I was younger. So I have 5 brothers, and growing up, I've played soccer like since I've been like really, really young. And I'm the second oldest, so it's like one over me and then the rest underneath me. And I have one sister who's like 10 years younger than me. But I learned, especially like being the only girl for a while, when I would play with them, my mentality was always like, I always wanted to like keep up with them because I was the girl. And there's always those talks like growing up, especially like I'm born in '89, like from then to like for like those like 10, 15, 20 years, it's like I just felt like I had to prove myself a lot when it came to like guys and like me playing with them. And like as I got older, I used to enjoy like going to pickup runs with them, and nobody knew how I played, only my brothers, and I would always get picked last. And my ego, that used to like feed me. I used to be like so happy because I'm like, I'm gonna show these guys, right?
Yeah.
So at the end of it, we always won. Like I was always like top like scorer, always won. And that kind of moved into like me, like how I am too when I shoot, like going into a lot of spaces where you might be the only female photographer in that space, or there'll be like 1 or 2, but like my mentality is like, okay, these guys don't know how I work. They don't know how I shoot. They don't know like my work at all. Like I want to like show them like, oh my God, like she's like one of the top. So it's like going to a lot of those like workspaces, like that's my mentality that came from like soccer to like that. But like I also fear like kind of being egotistical. Like people will come around me and will big me up as soon as they see me. They'll be like, oh, you're the GOAT, like da da da. And I never know how to take it. So like I try to keep myself really humble around people. Like, cause I never want to be that type where it's like, yeah, like I'm the shit. Like that only comes on like on the field or like if I'm working, but like around everyone, like I've never wanted to like seem like that way. Like I always try to like keep myself like grounded and just like humble.
Yeah. But you are the GOAT. You are amazing. You should just do what Beyonce does. When somebody went, you're Beyonce, and she went, thank you.
Yeah, yeah, it's so weird. It's so weird. Like I'm sure you guys get it too. Like it's really weird for me to take compliments. Like I don't know what to say after I get a compliment. Like I just laugh, like nervously. It's like, oh, thank you.
Does everybody else feel like that? Like, what's wrong with like? Do you guys have a problem taking compliments?
When I was younger, because I'd be in my head about stuff, I think. And I was like, no, I'm not. I'm terribly no idea what happened. That wasn't it at all.
Exactly.
Now I'm just like, thank you so much. Thank you for watching. Even when people say bad things, I'm like, well, thank you so much for watching. It's like, ah, whatever.
Yeah, I always find that to be actually a very genuine encounter. When someone is just like, I like your work, It's like that to me feels like real genuine, and the only challenge is like you want to reciprocate because those people are the ones that allow you to do what you do, and it's hard to reciprocate is the only challenging thing. I found what's funny is with Hip Hop Evolution, Netflix show, tell me what you think, but like TV I found is people look at me different. It's like the music is very simply, yo, like I love the music. Yeah. The TV, they look at you like,
they look at you like this.
Yeah.
They call your name out on the street.
Yeah. Because it's
just
this curiosity of like, how did you come out of my laptop or TV? It's just like, and I get it. It's
totally.
Like I've interviewed TV actors and stuff, and it's like, how are you here? You know what I mean?
Yeah, because there's that energy, and then all of a sudden, I think for me, it's like I get into I'm no longer, you're not talking to me like we're equals. You're looking at me in a certain way that makes me uncomfortable. Where I'm like, no, I live down there, and I play in this park. Like, you know what I mean? We're the same, right? So it depends, I think, on the
Yeah.
interaction, actually.
I had a very funny experience once on my street, because in Hip Hop Evolution we don't have wardrobe, so I'm just wearing my own clothes, and all the B-roll for that show is me walking. So I'm walking down my street wearing my same clothes that I wear in Hip Hop Evolution, and this guy comes out of his house and he's just frozen to the point where I asked him if he was okay,
Yeah.
because I thought he was gonna have a heart attack.
Yes.
And he didn't know who I was. He didn't know that I lived on the street, but he was just watching Hip Hop Evolution and then closed his laptop, and I was wearing the same clothes walking down the street. So like, he didn't know if he died.
And you were like, are you okay?
Yeah.
He's like, I think I might
I
die.
think I might have died. And my consciousness is just
Are
continuing.
you real? Like,
You should have
That's
gone up to him
hilarious.
and been like, it's time.
that
Something
would have
really
been so
scary.
funny.
You should just really shake him.
He was like, oh, sorry, you're not the rap. I'm here to interview
Yeah,
you.
exactly.
Yeah.
That would
Oh
be
my God,
so
that's so
Yeah.
trippy.
Anyway, so
Yeah.
yeah, I do find like some interactions are just very genuine and simple and easy and really nice, and others are funny.
It's also funny how you said you don't know what to say, because this happened to me recently, and I was like, oh my God, thank you so much. I love your eyeliner. Like, yeah, I did. I really did love her eyeliner. But it was like, I don't know anything about you. What's your life like?
I think that's why it makes it awkward for me. Like, that's why I don't know how to take compliments, because I don't know what to say back. Like, you know, I don't want to just say thank you. Like, I want to give them the same energy back, but I just don't know how.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Why do we feel like we need to give something back all the time? Like Brendan, like you put together theater productions, and I'm sure people leave and think, "Oh my God, that was amazing," and they compliment you.
You know, there's an energy loop that happens when you create, you know, and it is like a feedback loop. And so receiving the compliment, it's like, it doesn't feel finished, you know, it's
Yeah.
like, but I do think it finishes something for the audience. And I think that is how I wrap my brain around it, which is like, they've just received something, they've been living with it, and now they want to express, you know, it's like clapping. It's just such this, it's a
Yeah.
weird thing we do. But it feels so instinctive because it's closing the loop of an exchange. Actually, the applause is not about you. The applause is about the people in the audience saying, we exist too. Like, we've been sitting here watching, now we want you to hear us. And that is such a human thing, to want to complete that exchange that happens in the presence of art.
To say that they witnessed it,
That
which
I-
I think is
yes.
important.
Yeah.
I was here and I witnessed it.
Yeah.
And we're going to clear the air.
Exactly.
There's something about clapping that it's like we're going to clear the air so that something else can happen.
Yeah.
Mm.
I
know?
used to get very, like, when I did my first musical at Dixon Road, it brought in, like, a lot of people who'd never gone to the theater before. So, like, a lot of Somali community was coming to see a musical about a Somali family. And I think part of the reason why it's shameful is it's also, like, they just literally watched 2 hours of my childhood trauma, and then they see the person who wrote it, and then they're like, oh my gosh, it's so great that you're a writer and you're doing that. And there was one time where somebody came up to me and they were really emotional, and I remember being emotional writing it, so it's weird for me to think that somebody won't be emotional experiencing it. And they just happened to see me and decided to, like, say that it was a great show and that they felt very seen by it. But even then I was like, this person is like, how do I hold that emotion? But it's probably not even ours to hold. I just happen to be there. Whether, like, I think maybe with TV, it's like they never get to interact with you, so they never think that, you know, they have the opportunity to, like, express what they're feeling. But in theater, you're there with the people who are telling you the art, and I think that that is beautiful about it, but also trippy.
But how did you handle that? I mean, Dixon Road, amazing. So love that show. It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
How did you handle that personally?
I was just floored that when you start writing your first production, especially I guess in Canadian theater, like, you never think, oh, one day this will be produced. It's sort of like, it's your first thing, and God bless anybody's, like, in a workshop or actors are reading it. So it was like a 5-year journey of creating that show, and by the time we got to a production, I was like, just astounded at the number of people on an email thread about a story about Dixon Road and my family. So it was, like, astounding to see it come together, but I will say it was also very difficult. I think that I'm sure we all experience the feeling of, like, being the first of your community to have a certain voice in a space, and, like, the pressures of, like, you know, saying the right things, representing communities that haven't been represented before. There's a lot of pressure that, again, comes from the outside that I think that was really hard to like process, even though, you know, you get into the theater space and all of a sudden it makes sense, right? What was amazing about it was the fact that like there weren't spaces for like communities like mine to come to the theater, and so being in that room and seeing like a young hijabi be like, oh my gosh, she looks like me and she's on stage, and like all of that is like great and rewarding. But I would be lying if I didn't say that there wasn't like a little burnout that came at the end of it, and feeling like all that representation was like exhausting. And in terms of how I handled it, I then wrote a solo show about the pressures of representation. So I dealt with it with more work, which probably wasn't great. But it was my way of being like, why is it that certain artists have this like pressure to speak on behalf of so many things? And I do in so many ways just feel like the kid who really wanted attention and tell stories from her perspective and loved musicals. And there are so many things that like I think are pure about that for an artist that like just kind of like got lost in translation in terms of like bringing it to a bigger stage. But I think that that's like the journey, is just like figuring out what voice is yours versus like the voice that, you know, you show. In terms of imposter syndrome, I hate bios. Like if so, when somebody's like, can you send me a bio? I have an existential crisis every single time. I'm like, what have I done with my life actually? Like it's tricky, but throughout all of that, it's really just trying to figure out what my voice is, I think.
I'll write a bio with you for you.
Please.
Yeah, that's how I did it too. I needed someone else to be like,
To
oh yeah,
do
you did
it?
this, and it just takes you out of it.
Nice. That's a hack. That's good.
Then you read it and you're like,
I'm amazing.
I think.
Yeah.
And something I think it was Sarah or Brendan here, you were saying, you were talking about community, and it's just like, oh, I think it was what you were saying, it was like giving back and like that exchange. And that reminds me of something that I wanted to talk about with all you, was your community and the people that are around you, friends, family, colleagues, and how have they not supported you?
Coming from a large family and like being brown, I know there's usually pressures in brown families to be something when you get older, like after school and stuff like that, but it wasn't like that with me. And my mom has always been that person, like giving you 100% like support if you have a dream. Like she believes it if you tell her. So I think that played a big part in like me going after things that I wanted without even like a second thought. Like I knew a lot of people when I started, they were doing wedding photography, family photography, and that's where I thought I was gonna go. Was like that was like the most basic route, was to go that way. And like it just kind of led to like where I am now. Like it wasn't like I was trying, it just kind of happened. And I think that plays a huge part, like when you have family who supports you. And then there's also people who I met at the beginning as well who just kept like saying my name in any room that I wasn't in. Like there were so many gigs that I got because someone's like, oh, I know an amazing photographer, and like just like that, like that kindness is like invaluable. Like just like somebody saying, they didn't have to, you know what I mean, for me. And I try to do the same thing back, like when I go into rooms and there's certain situations that I can help anybody around me, like I'll do that as well. And it's for photographers and videographers and creatives as well. It's never like, oh, like I would only just say my name. Like, no, I try to put people on as well. I feel like that energy that you put out, like if it's good energy overall, it's always gonna come back to you no matter what. So I've been blessed to have like a great community. So I don't think there's anybody I've ever really had to just like leave behind. It's just the people that have been around me have always been there and have always supported me.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And I
that is
wish
beautiful.
we all had the same story. Brennan, I'm really curious to hear about yours. Like, you represent a certain community, LGBTQ. I can only imagine what that journey's been like. But also being in the theater space, like maybe there are people in your family or in your life that may have looked at that and thought like, theater? Like, or is it the opposite? I don't know.
I remember telling my stepfather when I was like 11 or 12 that I wanted to be an actor, and he yelled at me because he just thought it was such an outrageous idea, you know, like who the hell do you think you are? But, and I definitely had to leave that behind, you know, and in a way it fueled me, you know, for whatever reason. I just I'm a bit of a fighter, so a bit of like, I'll show you. And then lots of friends that I grew up just had absolutely no way of relating to the theater, you know, just like, and also for me, coming out as an artist also coincided with me coming out as a gay man. So that's a whole process of reinvention, and some people are there and other people just are not there for that. So yeah, I think you gotta, as an artist, as a creative, you gotta find your people, and those are people who will support you, but also tell you the truth and be real with you. And if you have those people, like if you're in school, who are your classmates that you can trust, and, you know, going to be real with you, and you hold on to those people tightly, because they're the ones that are going to push you and make sure that you're, you know, operating at your best. And sometimes it takes time to discern who those people are in your life.
Definitely.
You know, it's not always obvious. It took me time to figure that out.
I had a hard time telling people that I wanted to be a writer. Like, it was something that I was like, oh, I'll do something else by day, but maybe, like, you know, do this like writing thing. The first person, I was walking down like Christy, where there are like a lot of retirement homes, and an old lady passed me by, and she was being nice. She's like, hi, how's your day? She's like, oh, you're so cute. Like, what do you do? And I said, I'm a writer. And she was the first person I ever like told that to. And she just went, and she's like, oh, that's so nice, and left. And I'm like, I told somebody I was a writer. I was just so excited about it. So even if it's a strange person, I guess it still works.
Still community.
Strange
It's still
person,
community.
not a stranger.
A stranger, just a strange person on the street.
And maybe a strange person.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. Yeah, I didn't know her deal, but I was so grateful. It truly meant nothing to her. She was like, oh, that's cool, and went about her day. But she doesn't know that deep down she was the first person I ever like confidently said that to.
The story I always tell is like my grandmother, who's passed away now, and she lived in Rwanda. And when my mom would try to explain to her, like, Shad, like, makes music, she'd be like, okay, yeah, obviously everybody makes music. Like, everybody sings. That's how it is in that culture. Everybody sings. Like, the idea of me doing that professionally is like, and the example my mom gave, it's like playing Duck, Duck, Goose professionally. Like, like, kids do it. Like, how is that a job, you know? And not in a negative, I don't think she said that in a negative way, but just to speak to, not everybody understands, you know, kind of what possesses us and what instinctively we are going to spend our time doing. And so that's hard, because I think a human need is to be understood. You know, it's painful to not necessarily be understood. But, you know, I feel fortunate, like, my family's had my back, my best friends have had my back. I've worked with a lot of the same people throughout my career, partly because I also have this romantic idea of we're going to build it together and win together and enjoy it together, you know, and ride off into the sunset together if possible too. I like that idea. And I've been fortunate, but I think no matter how fortunate we are as artists, you're going to experience a level of not being understood. Our value system, the things we care about, is just completely counter to this society.
Yeah.
You know?
Most often, when I'm doing something, I'm trying to make my cousin laugh, and I'm trying to make my sister laugh in the audience. Because they know me the best, and they're the ones who come to see my shows and will be like, she'll be honest with me, she'll be like, okay, the first two things you did, I was like, okay, there's Weird Racky doing her thing. She's like, the middle stuff? And I was like, yeah, it's my old stuff, I don't know. And she's like, yeah, you just didn't seem excited about it. And I'm like, cool, I can have, like, this person knows me and knows when I'm really in myself. So I'm grateful for that too. But those are the two people I'm always trying to hit.
Awesome.
I think I got to say this though too, is like in this circle of people that have, you know, produced some things, achieved a certain level of sort of success, I think the community question is easier, a little bit easier, right? Because even if people don't understand what we do or why we do it, they can see it's working, and so like they're down. But I think it's harder in certain seasons of career where things maybe aren't going as well, or for people who are kind of struggling to get that takeoff. That level of misunderstanding is higher and more painful.
Well,
I think.
like you said, there was a section of my life that I had to leave people out of what I was doing because I was at the start of it and I knew it was messy. And I knew I didn't know what I was doing and that it wouldn't be perfect. So I had to pause some people from coming to see that part of it because I knew that it would hurt me and that their response would hurt me.
I still have that. I still like, you know, I think I've made 7 or 8 albums or something like that. Like there is no behind the scenes of me working on an album, photos, video, zero.
Right.
Because I'm still scared of letting people into that part of the process. You know, my manager has to bug me for like updates and stuff like that. It's still a thing I struggle with, letting people into that part of the process because of that fear of being misunderstood or whatever.
Because we're sharing something a lot deeper than work. It's not like,
Yeah.
here, look at this table I made.
Yes.
It's like, it's
Yes.
something, it's like,
This
here are
is
all
some
the
part of me.
feelings,
Yeah.
the part of me. And if you're like feeling weird about that, you're rejecting me actually.
Yes.
So yeah, I get being like cagey about it. But then you find the people who are like, this is amazing. And you're like, I feel so seen.
And can give
Yeah.
you like an honest, critical
Yeah.
response. And
Yeah.
I trust them to really be on, like,
Yeah.
you really start to weed out like when people are talking about stuff in relation to themselves and stuff in relation to your growth and like what your work is.
There's one time I didn't feel nervous before a show, and it was the worst show I've ever had by far. And I've never, that's the feeling I'm afraid of now.
Yes. Yes.
If I feel like stage fright, I'm like, good, on some level. Like
Yeah.
now that is the thing I'm most scared of is 2 minutes to go on and not feeling anything.